Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Translating a nation's cultural mission into a highly disciplined, long-term operating model is, well, it's a massive task. Today, we're unpacking a comprehensive strategic toolkit built for the Saudi Heritage Preservation Society, or SHPS. Now, heritage isn't just about old buildings or dusty artifacts sitting behind glass. It's a living, breathing ecosystem. Think of the beautiful traditional al-Sadu weaving, the intricate Najdi architecture, or the rich oral histories of tribal poetry. So how on earth do you manage all of that at a national scale without losing the very essence of what you're trying to save?
That brings us to the core tension of the Saudi Heritage Challenge. How do you protect a nation's ancient soul during rapid modernization? Because without a really strict framework, there's a huge risk of losing cultural meaning entirely, or worse, turning ancient living traditions into nothing more than cheap tourist attractions. When a country is modernizing this fast, the goal can't just be to ramp up heritage activities for the sake of looking busy. There's some incredibly high-stakes trade-offs here. If you rush it, you're literally risking extracting knowledge without meaningful consent or presenting heritage in a way that totally strips it from its social context.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 5 key areas. First, the Heritage Challenge itself. Second, building a disciplined operating model. Third, putting local communities first. Fourth, purpose-driven digital transformation. And finally, safeguarding all of this through to 2030.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the Saudi Heritage Challenge, and how we go about protecting authenticity and dignity.
Look at this timeline. It's really a story of compounding credibility. SHPS started out in 2010 as a nonprofit startup, and by 2020, they achieved official accreditation under the UNESCO Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. And as the source data highlights, they successfully renewed that accreditation in 2025. This isn't just a random list of dates. It shows a massive compounding of institutional capability, and it aligns perfectly with the broader cultural transformation happening under Saudi Vision 2030.
Moving right along to Section 2, a disciplined operating model. This is all about translating that grand ambition into actual, on-the-ground action.
Now you might be thinking, hey, let's just do more stuff. But simply increasing activity without intense focus? That's a trap. It just creates mandate ambiguity where you end up stepping on the toes of other public institutions and burning through resources. Instead, a discipline model requires us to identify the absolute smallest number of outcomes that will materially change the quality of the heritage system. Every single project selection, staffing choice, and budget has to be guided by these focused outcomes. It's the only way to ensure real community legitimacy and top-tier professional quality.
Okay, theory of change. I know it sounds like absolute corporate jargon, right? But hear me out. In heritage preservation, it is a non-negotiable safeguard. Every major workstream must have this defined. It literally forces the organization to explain exactly how their intervention strengthens cultural confidence and community capability, instead of just treating a heritage activity as an end in itself.
You can't just skip straight to the finish line here. To build this system securely, you have to avoid jumping right into widespread delivery. It requires a very deliberate, step-by-step approach, specifically these 3 phases.
Let's march through exactly what happens in each of these, because it shows how the learning compounds over time. First up is the foundation phase. This is where you lock down your governance, legal checks, and community partnerships. You got to build the basement before the roof, right? Only then do you move to delivery, where you actually scale the programs up. And finally, consolidation. You're not just packing up and going home here, you're embedding all those hard-learned lessons into a searchable knowledge base and securing the multi-year financing needed so the project survives long after the initial buzz fades.
That brings us to Section 3, putting local communities first. Because at the end of the day, this is really all about consent, rights, and benefit sharing.
This is huge! You absolutely cannot successfully preserve a community's heritage if you leave the actual community out of the process. The strategy explicitly warns against bad practices, like setting up project incentives that actually encourage distortion or that separate heritage from its social context. This is all about responsible stewardship. The toolkit demands that local communities, the artisans, the tribal elders, the master weavers, the poets, are treated as the central designers of any project. They have to be involved in validating the documentation and deciding what forms of commercialization are actually okay, making absolutely sure their dignity is respected.
Before a single project gets the green light, it has to pass some incredibly strict operational reviews. We're talking hard questions here. What exact heritage value is being protected? Who actually owns the resulting data? And crucially, how will the benefits return to the community?
If an initiative is going to generate commercial value, the strategy requires a completely explicit plan for benefit sharing. Artisans and practitioners have to be acknowledged and compensated. We have to protect their cultural meaning from just being simplified for mass consumption.
All right, Section 4, Purpose-Driven Digital Transformation. Let's talk about preserving history through modern technology.
Digitizing heritage sounds amazing, and it is a massive priority, but it comes with immense responsibility. We really have to ask, who actually owns this cultural data? Because governance around oral histories and culturally restricted material requires incredibly strong privacy safeguards. Think about it. When you are recording someone's grandfather telling a sensitive tribal history or photographing location-sensitive assets, you can't just toss that data onto a public server for anyone to grab. The strategy demands strict data ownership definitions, consent protocols, and retention rules before a single hard drive is even filled.
And this is absolutely critical. Adopting flashy new platforms is completely useless unless it measurably improves preservation. Digital transformation has to be driven by actual heritage outcomes, not just technology novelty. You don't use artificial intelligence just to say, hey, we're using AI. You use it because it genuinely improves your documentation, your access, or your institutional efficiency in a highly defensible way.
So here are the non-negotiable rules for digital transformation, making sure technical innovation never outpaces ethical stewardship. You have to define data ownership and access. You apply AI only for improved documentation. And it's also about reusability. Any metadata or digital template created by SHPs needs to be captured in formats that other partners can actually use. This stops everyone from reinventing the wheel and allows the whole national ecosystem to compound its capabilities over time. Oh, and of course, protecting that culturally restricted material is paramount.
Which leaves us to our final pillar, Section 5, Safeguarding through 2030 and ensuring sustainable institutional impact.
Look, all this incredible work means literally nothing if the organization collapses under pressure 5 years from now. That's why SHIPS anticipates changes through rigorous scenario planning. Think about tourism pressure, for example. As Saudi Arabia opens up to more global visitors, heritage sites are going to face unprecedented wear and tear. Or consider climate risk or even shifting community demographics. The strategy requires the organization to plan for these exact scenarios today. It builds institutional resilience so that essential knowledge doesn't just sit in one person's head, but is properly documented and shared.
And the big target on the horizon? 2030. This overarching goal aligns perfectly with Saudi Vision 2030, and it demands multi-year institutional support without compromising the organization's independence. What does that mean in practice? It means building a highly diversified resource model. We're talking grants, strategic sponsorships, earned income from mission-aligned activities, so that SHPS can keep its community-centered focus completely free from any donor conditions that might compromise its core mission.
I love this quote because it really hits the nail on the head. The long-term test is whether the organization leaves behind stronger communities, better documented heritage, more capable practitioners. This is the ultimate metric of success laid out in the toolkit. It proves that heritage activity isn't just an end in itself, it's a means to empower people. It's not about how many events you throw or how many attendees show up. Those are just numbers on a page. The real evidence of success is qualitative. Do the communities actually trust you? Is that sacred knowledge actively being passed down to the next generation? Are the practitioners more capable today than they were yesterday?
So I want to leave you with a thought to really chew on, challenging you to consider how these disciplined principles could be applied to protect global heritage everywhere. What will your community's heritage look like in 2030 and beyond? This strategic toolkit isn't just a playbook for Saudi Arabia, it is an absolute masterclass in treating cultural memory with the intense rigor, the respect, and the long-term planning it deserves. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new lens on how we preserve the human story.